Good morning. I am Betsy Stites, President of the League of Women Voters for Woodbury Cottage Grove area. The purpose of the League is at the national, state, and local level to empower voters and defend democracy. For more than 100 years, the League of Women Voters has been a trusted source for nonpartisan voter registration and a longstanding witness to Minnesota's proud tradition of voter access and election integrity. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization. Its mission is to encourage informed and active participation in citizens, in government, work to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influence public policy through education and advocacy. The League strengthens our communities through things like candidate forums or today's legislative interviews, and informing voters on public policy through education and advocacy. I am really thrilled today to bring us our legislative interviews. We have worked hard and have an opportunity to hear from our 8 legislators. And for the first time, which is really exciting, we have all of our legislators from our district. Senator Mitchell will be joining us later today. She's on National Guard duty, but she's going to plug us in for the last at least half hour. And we're really thrilled that she's able to do that. I want to first thank all of you. This has been a wild and crazy week. I've been checking with your legislative assistants, and I know it is just this first week of session is crazy. And the amazing thing is 6 of our 8 representatives and legislators are brand new. It's their first term. So it's especially hectic, I'm sure, for those of you. We are really proud that you were willing to take time today. We have individuals from both sides of the aisle, and that reinforces the importance of our nonpartisan platform. It's so important that we hear across from everyone all of the issues that you are concerned about. Today is not a debate. Thank goodness you all can relax. You can really relax and just help us get to know you, help us get to understand what your legislative priorities are, what your thinking is as we move forward. As we begin the process, let me just quick refer to the process. We are going to have 1.5 minutes for the first question, and then 1 minute afterwards. We're going to go in alphabetical order. We have received 3 audience questions ahead of time. Because of the number of participants today, we will not have additional audience questions. So we will not be opening the chat for our audience. It is being recorded, as I said, and so all your friends and relatives can hop on to the recording afterwards if they weren't able to come today. But again, welcome. We're glad to have you. And I'm going to start. Vivian Tannehill, our co-host, and I will be going back and forth and sharing the questions. So Representative Cha, we're going to start with you with the first question. And the first question is about our legislative priorities. Here it is. What district do you represent, and what is your committee assignment? What will your top 3 priorities be for the legislative session, and why? What current legislation are you planning to support? Representative Cha, your 1.5 minutes starts now.
Well, thank you. Well, first of all, I'm Representative Ethan Cha, and I represent Woodbury 47 District B. I would like to thank all the voters, take this opportunity to thank all the voters who voted for me to get me elected to the seat. Would love to thank former Representative Steve Sandell for his service and former Senator Susan Kent for her service. And of course, I'd like to thank the League of Women's Voters for the opportunity to be here to share my legislative perspective for 2023. My committee assignments are agriculture, commerce, legacy, housing, and I also sit on the pension commission. So I sit on 5 committees. My priorities hasn't changed as I campaign for 2023, and it's going to be the environment, families, education, and women's reproductive access to healthcare. And it will remain the same. And I expect to have to be very busy this legislation section. As you all know, we are starting early, and as a new legislator, I am here to ensure that I truly represent my constituents in 47B. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Hanson.
Thank you, and thank you to the League of Women Voters. I guess I am one of the more vintage members in the delegation. I was first elected in 2004, and this will be the first time representing Washington County. I would maybe just take this opportunity. Historically, the members on a bipartisan basis in Dakota County have met. So I think this is the first time we've met as Washington County members beyond League of Women Voters. So I guess it's my responsibility as a senior member to ensure that we keep meeting and working together for Washington County at first, because there's things that are going to be very specific to the county that we need to work on. So I look forward to that. A lot I'm going to focus on process. I chair the Environment Committee. We have passed a bill out of committee on the first day. We're going to be doing more of that, specifically for Washington County. PFAS, PFAS contamination and water quality, I think is going to be a big issue with a multitude of bills working on that. School funding and making sure we have opportunities for our kids. And then I think the tax conformity bill is coming up very early next week. We're really doing catch up and cleanup. Hopefully we can get back on a routine of doing the routine things simply and easily and on time.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Representative Hudella.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me on today. Like a lot of the representatives and senators, honored to be here and want to take the opportunity to thank LWV, as well as all the constituents in the district who got out and voted. Even if they voted the other way, I wanted to thank everybody for getting out and exercising that right. It's an important part of our government, and excited to be here and be a part of it now. So my name is, again, Representative Shane Hudella. I represent 41B, which is all of Hastings, part of Cottage Grove, Denmark, and Nininger townships. I sit on the Transportation Committee, Education, Finance, and Veterans. Priorities for this session, I had the honor of signing on as a co-author to my first ever bill in week 1, which was a pretty cool moment. And that bill was to repeal the Social Security tax. So I think important to try and get that burden off a lot of our seniors in particular. So that was a big priority of mine. I continue to be very passionate about the fentanyl crisis. And then third, trying to get crime under control. And I think that goes hand in hand with addressing our mental health crisis and trying to make progress there.
Thank you very much. Representative Hemmingsen-Jaeger.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm Representative Amanda Hemmingsen-Jaeger. I represent 47A, which is the communities of Southern Maplewood and about half of Woodbury. Just again, want to express my gratitude and thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting this. I think it's a great way to get us all together. I want to thank everybody in the district for your conversations, for your support, and just for being a great community. I sit on the Health Committee, Climate and Energy, Children and Families, and Workforce Development Committee. So I'm very excited to dig into that work, and also very excited because it will continue to reflect the values that I heard from conversations in the community supporting legislation and bills that reflect the values of addressing climate change, looking into our water and the PFAS contaminants, looking into education, making sure that our education is fully funded and we're taking care of our teachers and our students. Championing healthcare, making sure that we have that access to reproductive rights, making sure that people have access to paid family medical leave, and that families don't have to struggle to make ends meet. So just very happy and excited to get going. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Klein.
Well, thank you, Betsy, and thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for holding this forum and the forums during the campaign season. There's never been a more important time for citizen organizations that are nonpartisan and defend the democratic process to come forward like you have done. So thank you so much. My name is Matt Klein. Like Rick Hanson, I'm one of the two legislators on this panel who have been there for a while. I've been there for 6 years, representing the communities of Inver Grove Heights, South St. Paul, West St. Paul, and Mendota Heights. I continue to represent all or parts of those cities, as well as now the new areas across the river of Newport, St. Paul Park, part of Cottage Grove, and Great Cloud Island, which I picked up from Senator Bigham. I've been there for 6 years in the Senate, and this year I'm the chair of the Commerce Committee. I'm the vice chair of the Taxes Committee, and I serve on the Energy Committee. My three top priorities for this session are: number one, what to do with our $18 billion surplus, a combination of tax cuts and investments in our priorities, finding that perfect balance. Defending our democracy, which has never been under assault as it has these last few years, and committing to make action on climate change. As chair or vice chair of the Taxes Committee, I will work hard to eliminate the tax on Social Security, to lower property taxes for our homeowners so they can stay in their homes, and to moving forward on issues such as paid family leave, sports wagering, and 100% clean energy in our state.
Thank you so much. And Representative Wiens, and first of all, thank you for being here. I know it's your birthday weekend, so we appreciate you taking time for this. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters, to you, Betsy and Vivian, for corralling us all on a Saturday morning. Yes, it was my birthday yesterday. I try to keep that on the down low. My name is Mark Wiens. I represent 41A. All the way in the north from Grant Township through Lake Elmo, Baytown, West Lakeland, the beach communities, Afton, down to the top part of Denmark County or Denmark Township and Cottage Grove. I'm on judiciary, finance and civil law, veterans and military affairs, also workforce development, finance and policy. My priorities, much like many here, are: what are we going to do with the surplus? And I see that there's an opportunity here for us to give tax relief. So I want to work on that, as well as providing good governance and oversight so that our state provides the services and also is accountable, responsible, and transparent in that. And then, as a father of 2 daughters in Stillwater Public Schools, I'm very concerned about education, academic excellence. And I want to see my kids be able to drink the water, enjoy the nature that's here, and I look forward to working with my colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We're going to go to the second question around legislative priorities. And some of you already mentioned this, but what are we going to do this session with our $7.2 billion state surplus that is now evolved to 18 billion. I can't even say the word billion. It's so mind-boggling. What do you believe the state should do with that surplus? And we're going to start with Representative Hanson.
Thank you. A couple of things. We have some old debts that we have to pay. There's a Metropolitan Landfill Trust that was raided in the early 2000s that never was paid back. Those were fees that all of us paid in the metro area to respond to leaky landfills in the future. So I think that's a good example of one-time money, is to pay back some of those debts. I think, as was mentioned earlier, you're going to see a cross-section of tax reform as well as investments. I think as interest rates have gone up, we can do some capital projects with what we would call cash, general fund, and can move a little quicker and a little more nimbly with those. We can also take some of that money to match federal money for infrastructure, specifically in Newport. Inflow and infiltration is a very important deal, and the community is not going to have the funds to cover that. So if we can do that, that would be great.
Thank you very much. Representative Hudella.
I think with this massive surplus that we have, I would love to see a big chunk of it go to decrease taxes for working Minnesotans. I also think that we need to invest part of it in our mental health crisis. And then finally, I would love to give a big chunk of it back to the people where it came from.
Thank you. Representative Hemmingsen-Jaeger.
Great, thank you, great question. You know, this has been on a lot of people's minds, I think, for a long time. And I really think we can handle it with a balance. I think we do have some things that we've been neglecting over the past few years, decade, and we need to use some of that money to kind of catch us up and balance that. And then I think we can also do some reinvesting in some things, like we can look at childcare, we can look at education, we can look at healthcare. And then just other priorities that I'm open to exploring to really just help people and to help families of all generations.
Thank you very much. Senator Klein.
Well, thank you. And to the moderators, I think you may have missed my Senate colleague, Senator Seeberger, on the first question. So hopefully we can...
Oh, I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. She actually should have come before you.
She did, and hopefully she'll get a chance. I'm sure she has answers to these questions. In any case, yes. $18 billion surplus, about 2/3 of it is one-time money that can't really be invested in long ongoing priorities, but could be used to transform our economy with infrastructure investments in green energy, transportation and transit and so forth. Tax cuts are a priority, as we've all heard, Social Security relief and property tax relief to keep people in their homes. And then the types of investments I would like to see are full investments in public education, in clean energy initiatives, and in paid family and medical leave.
Let's go back. I so apologize, Senator Seeberger. I'm trying to keep my grid here going. Let's give you a minute and a half, and let me repeat that first question for you. What district do you represent, and what is your committee assignment? What will your top 3 priorities be for the legislative session and why? What current legislation are you planning to support? And you have a minute and a half.
Thank you, Betsy. Yeah, sorry I didn't jump in there. I didn't want to disrupt the process.
I apologize.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you. I am Senator Judy Seeberger. I represent District 41, which includes the cities of Grant, Lake Elmo, Afton, Lakeland, West Lakeland Township, Baytown Township, Lakeland Shores, St. Mary's Point, the other Lakeland cities, Cottage Grove, Hastings, and Nininger Township and Denmark Township. I serve as Vice Chair of the Commerce Committee. I am on Judiciary and Public Safety Committee. I am also on the Agriculture, Broadband, and Rural Development Committee, and will be sitting on the Pensions Committee as well. My legislative priorities are first and foremost to enshrine reproductive freedoms and access in the state. I would also like to eliminate the tax on Social Security benefits. It's something I've campaigned on and something that I've maintained as a way forward I see us for the state here in Minnesota. I'd also like us to make some responsible decisions with regard to our historic budget surplus. Among those would be to assist the Veterans Home in Hastings. I know that they are looking for some funds to build a new facility, and I'd love to see that happen during this session.
Let's give you a minute to take a breath, and we'll have Representative Cha answer the budget surplus and then come right back to you, Senator Seeberger. So Representative Cha, if you could respond to what would you do with, or what should the, not you, you aren't in charge, but what should the state do with the surplus?
Well, with the historical, surplus, I hope that regardless of party affiliation, we can work across the aisle and come to some agreements to better the lives of all Minnesotans. Some of the priorities are the same with my colleagues, infrastructure investments, paid family leave, and, giving relief, property tax. And so those are some of the common ideas, but I think most importantly, we have a historical moment here to work together to make Minnesotan lives better for all of us.
Thank you. And now back to you, Senator Seeberger. What would you do with that surplus?
Again, I think we have plenty of money to fund some things that have been sort of sitting by the wayside here for way too long. I mentioned the Veterans Home in Hastings. I think now is the time to give them the money they need to build a new facility, something that will serve all our veterans, and particularly women veterans who, when I visited the facility, learned that it's maybe not set up to accommodate women who will be needing those services. I'd love to see us fund education. As a public school teacher, I know exactly how it feels to get in there and spend for our students out of my own pocket. So I'd love to see money going to education, funding our infrastructure, and of course, getting paid family and medical leave going here in the state of Minnesota.
Thank you very much. I'm going to turn the next two questions over to Vivian Latimer-Tannehill.
Good morning. I'd like to join Betsy in welcoming our panelists today. It's so nice to have you all here. It's I compliment Betsy for getting you here. So we'll start with the next two questions. I'd like to see you share your position on two areas of public interest. The first question is, what legislation are you planning to support that will address climate change? And we'll begin with Representative Hudella.
Thanks. I think you may have missed Representative Wiens on the last question.
Oh, well, let's go back.
Hop back to that.
Let's start with Representative Wiens. And I'll go through that question again. In the 2023 legislative session, when it ended, no action was taken on the remaining $7.2 billion state surplus that has now evolved to $18 billion. What do you believe the state should do with that surplus?
Thank you, Vivian, for that question. Like my colleagues, I see that we have a tremendous opportunity here to maybe right some wrongs and level the playing field. And I think the first responsibility is to give back to the taxpayers of Minnesota to make their own decisions on what they need to buy, whether it's for energy, groceries, what have you, to improve their own lives with their own dignity. Also, I think initiatives with public safety, the fentanyl crisis, and mental health is of concern. And we have some, I think, some legacy interest in PFAS monitoring to ensure that we're doing the right things based on the last legislative session. And lastly, again, I think we agree we need to cancel the Social Security tax. I think that's a bipartisan. I think even the governor has indicated he would be interested in doing that for our seniors, to keep them in their homes as vital Minnesota taxpayers and great citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to go back to the next question, and I will repeat it again. The first person who is up is Representative Hudella. Here is the question once again. What legislation are you planning to support that will address climate change? Representative Hudella.
I think important to me that we find balance. I think both sides of the aisle are very passionate about protecting our environment and addressing our climate. I just think that we need to find balance between nuclear and solar and wind and yes, some more usage of coal. We can't just flip a switch and put out an unrealistic date that we need to transition to all green energy by. And looking forward to working with my colleagues to try and find that balance. I think important to look at some studies. There's an organization called Friends of Our Earth that just a couple months ago put out a study with the impact of lithium mining and how it affects water quality. So anxious to get to work on it. Again, for me, it's just a balance and realistic timelines.
Great, thank you, Representative Hudella. Representative Hemmingsen-Jaeger, if you would like to give us your thoughts.
You. So as the daughter of a career Department of Natural Resources employee, conservation and climate change has always been top of mind for me. It's actually a really important issue to my kids too. They're concerned about water conservation and electricity conservation. So I'm very excited also to use my background in policy from the Humphrey, my background in lab experience in genetics and chemistry, to really take a scientific approach and to make sure that we are achieving kind of a sensical and a balance, but still making sure that we are taking some actions. I sit on the Climate and Energy Committee, thrilled about that. And I also signed on to HF7, House File 7, which is the goal for 100% clean energy. And in addition to that, I'm looking forward to addressing our water and our PFAS issues with my neighboring representatives and senators. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to Senator Klein, please.
Well, thank you, Vivian. Yes, on the Energy Committee where I serve, Chair Nick Frentz plans to very rapidly move a bill called 100% Clean Energy, which I think Minnesotans will be hearing about this coming week, to move our state towards 100% clean energy sources. And let me agree with one of the panelists from earlier that part of going to 100% clean energy is going to be doing some responsible work in the nuclear energy realm. And that's, I think, an essential component to moving forward with carbon zero state in our state. In my work on the tax committee where I'm vice chair, we can create tax incentives for people to invest in solar privately or with industry. And I tend to be more of a carrot than a stick type of person. I'd rather use financial incentives such as tax credits over mandates to try to get us to an 100% carbon zero state.
Great. Thank you very much. We'll move on to Senator Seeberger, please.
Thanks. The notion of protecting our environment and combating climate change is very close to my heart. I will be a champion and a proponent of the 100% clean energy bill. I am also in favor of tax credits and incentives to move people in the direction of working with a cleaner energy source and tactic to try to keep us moving in the right direction in that regard. In terms of overall environmental issues, a big thing and one that's at the top of my list and has been for a long time is the PFAS in our area. As I've said before, my own well here in this house where I'm sitting is contaminated. So we have the big filters, and I know that it's a pervasive problem up and down my district and something that I want to take immediate action to work on.
Great, thank you very much. Representative Wiens.
Thank you for that very important question, because it's that balance between the energy required to live and run our industry and our businesses. And we've got to figure out how to do that in our environment so that we can live in it. The blending piece has got to be figured out so that we can do this in a way that doesn't hamstring us and our lives are still fruitful and bountiful. I think nuclear plays a role in that, and there is some hope with the nuclear fusion. Again, that's off in the future to some extent, but we need to ensure that we have reliable, affordable, and ample energy. I like the idea of wind, hydro, solar, but it doesn't always blow, and maybe it blows too much. And we've got to figure out the battery capacity and those things so that we can live here, enjoy our time, and then also keep our environment clean. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Chaw.
Yes, as a former farmer and a cattle rancher, I've witnessed results of climate change, impacting pastures and, clean water access and stuff. So it's very close to my heart. I agree with my colleagues with the 100% to carbon free in 2040, these bills that's been circulating. I truly support that. And I believe that we must protect our natural resources environment for the future of our communities, for our children. And it's our responsibilities as, human beings. So thank you.
Thank you. Representative Hanson.
Thank you. Well, one of the benefits of being around for a while is I've heard it all before. I've heard all the talking points before, and time slips away. I read this morning that the Great Salt Lake is going to be dried up. The Great Salt Lake is going to be dried up. And so we don't have any time. We have to do a number of things. First, we need to work on the public dollar when we're building things, to build things energy efficient and resilient and climate friendly. We need to build that, think of and rebuild with old schools and build in efficiency. For example, South St. Paul has a very old school, or Newport Elementary, old schools. How about improving them by putting in energy efficiency and putting in energy such as solar, or even other types of ways of getting energy like wind. There's things that we can do. We know what to do. It's not just 100% goal. We have to use the public dollar to invest effectively to reduce carbon as quickly as possible, because we do not have the time. And as water disappears, contamination has a greater impact. Senator Seeberger is exactly right. You know, if we reduce our water, we're going to have more contamination and have more impacts. It's all interconnected. We are all part of this web of life.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to our next question. And that question is, what is your position on letting voters decide whether the Equal Rights Amendment should be added to the state constitution in 2024? Our first representative, Hemmingsen-Jaeger, please.
Thank you. And thank you so much for this question. And coincidentally, I'm very excited to be the first one to answer on this. I am so excited. I think it's past due that we have this in our Constitution. Representative Herr came to me with a bill yesterday, and I was like enthusiastic. Yes. And I think this is something where everybody across Minnesota just is very passionate about. Everybody, you know, our neighbors need to be treated equally, and we need that, you know, a scientist, we need it in writing. And so yeah, I guess ranting, but just very excited. And I think this is past due, and I'm very excited to see it coming in the future. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that answer. We'll move on to Senator Klein.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in full support. I've been an author on the bill for the last 6 years consecutively. I plan to support my colleague, Senator Seeberger from Washington County and Senator Mitchell from Washington County, and get this across the line this year.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, we'll move on to Senator Seeberger.
It's well past time to get this thing done. I will be leading the charge alongside of my colleagues to get this in front of the voters and as a part of our Constitution ASAP.
Thank you very much. Representative Wiens.
This is, I think, a simple process, a simple majority in each chamber of the House, and this can go forward. So looking forward to seeing this.
Great. Thank you very much. Representative Cha.
Preserving and protecting basic human rights, you know, enshrining the basic principle of gender equality in the Minnesota Constitution. I'm all in, and it's going to be a top priority. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Hanson.
Happy to vote yes very soon, and then to vote yes again in November of 2024.
Thank you very much. Representative Hudella.
I think it's a great thing about our country that the voters get to decide a lot of things. So with support of being on the ballot for voters to decide in 2024.
Thank you all for your answers, and I'd like to turn it back to Betsy, please.
We've already had a demonstration of the collaboration when you're watching out for one another. I really appreciate that. And it's great, just like this last question that Vivian asked, how you all, I mean, it's again, an example of working together across the aisle. So thank you. Our next questions are on voting rights and affordable housing. And we're going to start with Senator Klein. Would you support legislation to restore voting rights for persons on probation or parole who have completed a felony sentence and are currently living in their communities? Why or why not? And Senator Klein, we'll start with you.
Yes, I would, and I've been an author on that bill as well, the Second Chances Bill. People who have served their sentences to the state of Minnesota and to the country have the right to participate in our democratic process. It's not only true justice, but it's also a good investment in allowing people to feel they have a voice and that they've reformed their lives and can participate in American democracy again. So yes, I would support.
Great, thanks very much. The next person is Senator Seeberger.
Yes, I also support that for many of the same reasons advocated by Senator Klein. I believe it's the right thing to do. I believe it's an equitable thing to do, a fair thing to do, and I support it as well.
Representative Wiens.
Thank you. I believe in restorative justice, and I think this is I believe a package deal, not just for the felon or the criminal who has served their time, but also for the community. And that there needs to be, I think, a discussion of where the restorative piece for victims' rights, as well as the community that has been harmed, so that we can do a constructive healing. And I look forward to discussing this more with my fellow colleagues in the State House. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Cha.
Yes, I support this, second chance programs, and, voting rights are essential, so essential, so important to the Americans that there is the 14th, 15th, 7th, 19th, and 26th Amendment, already ensuring that we have voter rights. So we're not giving them anything they should not already have. So I totally support second chance programs.
Representative Hanson.
Yes, I've voted for this in the past. Will do so again for many of the reasons mentioned. It gives people hope and something to work for, that second chance. And when a right is restored like that, it's hard to describe that that hope that gives someone, and that making the restoration, making those amends and working towards that goal is really important. So I support it.
Thank you. Representative Hudella.
Thank you. I think I would need to see what the legislation looks like. I'm all about forgiveness and second chances, not for nonviolent felons in particular. Violent felonies, I don't know if I can support that. So again, open to looking at the legislation, but I think I would want to dive in and make sure, as Representative Wiens mentioned, that it takes into account victims' rights as well.
Thank you very much. Representative Hemmingsen-Jaeger.
Thank you. I had a conversation with a woman over the summer that has really stuck with me. She was talking to me about this very issue and said how she was in jail and she's been out for years now. She's clean and she's like doing all of the things. But the look on her face when she said she couldn't vote, I just felt like she just looked like she felt so left out. So I feel that, yes, we should be restoring the vote. These people have paid their debt to society. They're living in our community, and they should have the rights too, so that they can fully participate in our democratic society.
That has been a very long-standing issue for the league, and so it will be interesting to see how it can be brought forward as we look at that issue, because it's been a wonderful position for us. That of course, okay, I'm biased about that. The next question, and this was an audience question, the lack of affordable housing has been an issue. However, since COVID-19, it has gotten worse. With our growing economy, what legislation or policies would you support or propose to help Minnesota's housing market be more affordable for current and potential employees? And we're going to start with Senator Seeberger.
Affordable housing is a tremendous issue. Everybody deserves to have a safe place to live and an adequate place to live. To the extent that we can enact programs that provide credits or subsidies or give people a leg up so that they can live in a safe, secure, reasonable place with dignity, I think is a no-brainer. I can't imagine with the historic budget surplus that we have, not using some of that money to help fellow Minnesotans get into safe, affordable, sanitary, effective housing.
Thank you very much. Representative Wiens.
Well, thank you. I think we all agree home ownership is just one of the hallmarks of being an American and being a Minnesotan, and we pride ourselves on our homes, how we preen our yards, how we fix up our houses. And I think that should be achievable for every citizen, hardworking, tax-paying Minnesotan. How we get there, we may have a little bit of a disagreement on that, but I think we can work it. One of the things that I've seen or heard and seen reports of is just we have maybe for developmental reasons and what we require, we kind of price some people out of houses, and I think we can do a better job maybe of taking some of those regulations down so that we can have more affordable housing at the lower end and at the mid end. So at that point, I look forward to working with my colleagues to get to that point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Cha.
Yes, as a refugee, I was born in a refugee camp. I live in a tent for 4 years of my life. I didn't have a home. I grew up on the dirt floors of my tent. I've been in public housing, Section 8, as a refugee. So, reducing costs for renters and creating home ownership is important for me. And so we have to ensure that there are pathways and opportunities for people into home ownership and to live healthy lives, because having a home is essential to having a family and being part of the community. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Hanson.
Thank you. I would tie it back to the climate question. If we're building public housing, we make sure that it's energy efficient and we provide green energy to reduce the costs for the renters that come in there. In our community, we have a number of mobile home parks. I door knock those mobile home parks. There are people living in very poor condition. We've got to be able to do something to help out those folks. I almost fell through some stairs on the way up. So we're talking about safety. We've got to make sure we can do that. I think there's a way we can do those things. In addition, we have old stock. We have, there may be old schools, there may be old churches, there may be old warehouses, there may be old hotels that have good structure. Their bones are good and they could be redeveloped. And we have to look at examples of incentivizing, making those into housing. There's so much opportunity we can do if we're creative on this, and we have the money to do it.
Thank you very much. Representative Hudella.
Thank you. I think it's an extremely complex issue that there's no one quick and easy solution for, right? I was glad to see the last word of the question be employees, because I think it illustrates that tie to our economy. And I think that the economy, interest rates, inflation that we have affects the affordability of that housing. So I think if we can continue to try and find ways to lower taxes and improve our economy, I think that helps feed a better environment for us to provide housing at a better rate for more people.
Thank you very much. Representative Hemmingsen-Jaeger.
I do think this is a complex issue too, and I do think we need to be creative about it. And I do think we need to be looking at systems and make sure we're breaking down the silos when we talk about affordable housing. When I was just beginning to scratch the surface on this issue, I think we might have a disconnect with the definition of affordable housing. If affordable is tied to the average median income of a community, so often that may not actually be affordable to the average person. So making sure that we understand our terms is important. I'm excited to be participating in discussions and learning from my colleagues who have been doing this work. my background is all in lab science. I'm an expert in genetics, but I'm not an expert in affordable housing. So I'm really excited to learn from them and to bring my experience and to bring, my role in like committees to that as well. And I think if we look at other things like paid family leave, healthcare, prescription costs, we can make housing more affordable at the end of the day when the bills come due too.
Thank you very much. Senator Klein.
Thank you, Betsy. And I know that affordable housing is not exclusively about homelessness. It's about workforce housing, et cetera. But to think of our homelessness crisis that we have and the contradiction between the fact that we have an $18 billion surplus in this state, and yet we drive by tent cities in our parks and in our cities every day, shows that we simply have not exerted the energy and the organizational capacity of the state to create some priorities around housing. There are two big bills that you will see this year that will address this. One is a bonding bill, which will invest in affordable housing across our state, which is long overdue. And the other is the tax bill, which I will help create in the tax committee, which will include a renter's credit for people who rent, expanding property tax reductions in the form of senior tax credits and other tax credits to keep people in the homes that they currently own. And tax credits for builders who are willing to invest in affordable housing that is clean and well kept in communities. One thing we have learned, well, that's my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Klein. I appreciate it. Vivian, I'm going to turn the next two questions over to you.
And, I just have to say thank you for those honest and direct responses about the unhoused in particular in our city and across our nation. It's a shame. So I will move on with the questions and eliminate the comments. Our next two questions, one includes an audience question and one is a healthcare question. So we will start out with Senator Seeberger. And let me give you the question. How would you rate the efficiency and security of Minnesota's voting processes? Excellent, good, fair, or poor? If you could not rate our voting processes as excellent or good, what changes would you promote and or support in the legislature to address those processes?
I give our vote, I give our election system and voting process an excellent rating. I am proud of our voting record here in the state of Minnesota. I'm proud of our voter turnout. I think we have a fabulous system. And the only thing I would do to change it is make it easier for folks to vote. The governor mentioned at his inauguration some initiatives to make it easier, voter registration for high school kids, and other ways to get folks registered and able to vote. So I give it an excellent rating.
Great, thank you so much. We will move on to Representative Wiens.
Thank you, Vivian. I would rate ours as good. I think there's always room for improvement. I know we made some changes during COVID that weren't approved by the legislature, and I would like us to work to get back to a 1 day of Minnesota unity and pride and voting on election day. Of course, there should be opportunities for people that are deployed overseas or in hospitals or have other affairs that take them away, but it would mean a lot for us to come together during that time, maybe as a state holiday, possibly as a federal holiday. The other thing that I am concerned to go from good to excellent would be voter integrity, and that's voter ID. And how we do that, I think we're a can-do people. We know how to do that, and I think we have great access, and that's something that we can figure out how to do. And I look forward to working with my colleagues to get there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Cha.
Yes, I'll start this with a little story that as a refugee, I didn't have the right to vote with my parents, who are also refugees. But, as a family, we studied to earn our citizenship and was able to vote. And that was one of the first obstacles as a family of refugees, that voting was so important that I helped my parents study English for 2 years in order for them to get their citizenship so that we can vote. I think our rating system is excellent. But, that's because we have a 79% voter turnout. But there's always room for improvement because there's marginalized communities that could need more education and more participation. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to Representative Hanson.
think we have a-
Hanson, I'm sorry. Please, I apologize. Representative Hanson.
Don't worry. We have a great voting system, and I think the voters recognize that with rewarding Secretary Simon, I think the highest voter margin of victory last fall. I think they recognize his integrity and the work that he's done working with our local officials to make sure we have a safe and sound system. I think we can do more to get young people voting. Having a son that just graduated from high school last year and teaching him on how to register and how to vote, and the pride that I saw with him doing that and his colleagues. So I think there's a way, where we can integrate that into government classes or something, on giving them the opportunity, not forcing them to register, but giving them that opportunity to register to vote. Those are some things we can do to encourage lifelong democracy. I want to recognize where we were 2 years ago in Washington, D.C. And I think an informed and active electorate helps protect our democracy and defend against that.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to Representative Hudella, please.
Thank you. I think our Minnesota voting process is good, kind of like Representative Wiens. I'm a tough guy to get an excellence mark in just about anything, just because I think there's always room for improvement. To really want to commend Representative Cha and his family for putting in the effort and going about the right way to become a voter here in our great state and nation. And I think there's always ways to look for improvement. On the technology side, if you look at some of the massive technology on the private market, when you look at Amazon and some of these things, I think there's ways to maybe make things more transparent, and along with Representative Wiens, I think photo ID to vote and trying to get back to voting in person as much as we can is good for the process.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to Representative Hemmingsen-Jaeger.
I would rate our voting processes as excellent. I think that's shown again with the high voter turnout. I think our people and our communities, they have faith in our voting processes. They have faith in the elections. Otherwise, they wouldn't turn out. I also think that it's excellent because of our election judges. They're very passionate people and who believe deeply in the democratic process. I was lucky my husband was an election judge, so he got to meet a lot of judges, and it was just very heartwarming and humbling to kind of see those people at work. We can always do better. Just because we're excellent doesn't mean there's always room for improvement. So let's keep going. I think automatic voter registration is great. I think educating, kids, educating seniors, educating juniors, educating sophomores. I'm already educating my kids, and they're 5 and 8 on how to vote. So, the more people know, the more they feel comfortable and the more they turn out. And that's what democracy is about.
Great. Thank you very much. We'll move on to Senator Klein, please.
Thanks so much for the question. I think it's an essential question. Obviously, part of the mission of the league is defending our election integrity, and our systems are excellent. They are validated. I think it's important for us as legislators to use our voices. Future generations will ask how we responded to the big lie in 2020 about the election outcome. And it is incumbent on us to repeat throughout this next coming several years that that election was valid and correct. Our systems are excellent. Unfortunately, we've dropped to 3rd in the nation voter participation, and we need to get our 1st place status back. I think of my parents who have passed on, but over the last 4 years were able to vote in 2018 and in 2020 because of early in-person voting and because of mail-in balloting. And that's essential to allow people in our community who are maybe ill or elderly to participate in democracy. And it's essential to our participation rate that is as high as it is.
Great. That question is near and dear to my heart. My mother was not allowed to vote until 1965, and she voted for the first time here in Minnesota. So voting is very important to all of us. So we'll move on to the next question. And that question is, Should the state invest in more mental health services, facilities, or resources? If so, what would you suggest? Representative Wiens. I
All right,
apologize.
that's right up my alley. Thank you, Vivian. I'm married to a mental health therapist, and just our conversations over our 31-year plus marriage has given me just an insight to what goes on in our society. Also being career in the military, I've run into a lot of issues. I was proud to work on our suicide prevention element here in the Minnesota National Guard, and we had 1 year where we did not have a suicide, but we had a lot of suicide ideation. So mental health is near and dear to my heart. I think it's one of those things that we can get a handle on, especially in schools. That's one place where I would support some work. And then also with our law enforcement, not just for them, but also as they engage with the public. They need the training. They also need the information to know if they're coming up to somebody that has an autistic spectrum or has some other suffering illness, so that they know how to engage properly. And that, thank you, we can do this.
Thank you very much. Representative Cha. You're on mute. I get to say that to somebody else for a change.
Absolutely, we should invest into mental health facilities and resources. And I'm going to direct this at our students. With the pandemic and homeschooling, all the stuff that has happened over the past 2-3 years, our students right now are in need of mental health resources and guidance. And so I am 100% for mental health services for our students.
Great, thank you very much. Representative Hanson.
I'll take a little different perspective. I think we need to train people for mental health counseling. That means getting folks into that career path. Those of us who are a little more older now, that will be retiring, we have to have folks who are going to be there for the next 10, 20, 30 years. And it's a tough job. And so that needs continual support throughout the career path. I think we need to pay mental health counselors. We need to get a higher number of mental health counselors in our schools. And then finally, in agriculture, we actually have a roving mental health counselor for farmers that we've had for a long time. I think we should explore that for law enforcement and first responders, where they can respond quickly. I know we've built some buildings and have them staffed, but I think in some areas of the state, it would be great to look at that ag model.
Wonderful, thank you so much. I want to pause for a minute to welcome Senator Mitchell to our group. You don't have the next question, but I will go back to the person who does. I just wanted to recognize that you've joined us. Thank you very much for being here today. So we'll move on to Representative Hudella. The question about mental health resources, facilities, or services.
Yeah, I 1000% support a bigger investment into mental health. It's an absolute crisis right now, and particularly in our schools. I talked to a teacher yesterday that communicated that the biggest thing that they need help with right now is more mental health accessibility for their students. So I think there's a lot of creative ways that we can approach it. I think that particularly for our youth and young adults, there's some promise in app-based and technology-based mental health services. It's what they're used to, right? We're all used to looking at this, and I've known some young people that have accessed mental health through that portal, and I think it has a lot of promise for us. And I do agree with Representative Hanson that we can make a bigger investment in pushing that career field, and I don't know if incentives and marketing is the right answer, but I think encouraging folks to enter the career field is going to be a positive for all of us.
Thank you very much. I have to agree with the panel that this is a difficult area for those who are in the profession, and such a desperate need for our community. But I am going to stop with my comments and go to Representative Hemmingsen-Jaeger. Please, your thoughts?
you. Yes, we definitely need to be investing in mental health resources, facilities, services. It's a part of healthcare. There are physical manifestations when the brain and the emotional well-being is not well. I think we need to make sure this is another systems level thing as far as I'm concerned. We need to be making sure we're breaking down silos and having conversations, because this goes into so many aspects of a person's life. I am happy to, look to see if and how mental health services are covered under our Medicaid and our MNsure programs. Supporting experts, professionals, state employees that are doing this work. Because I think of it too, it's not just kids with mental health concerns, it's the parents. It's the parents caring for their kids themselves and their parents. It's senior citizens. It's other grown-ups and adults working in their jobs. So I just think it's a community-wide issue that we need to take a community-wide and a systems-wide approach.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to Senator Klein, please.
Thank you. Yes, and I think one of the biggest things we can do is continue to move towards parity for reimbursement for mental health services as compared to real or other medical services. One of the silver linings of the pandemic was that we vastly and quickly expanded our telemedicine capacity, which has allowed people in rural areas to access mental health services that otherwise would not have been available to them. And let's continue to build on that foundation of telemedicine and invest in that. Your listeners may know that when I'm not at the legislature, I'm a physician at Mayo Clinic in the hospital, and we have a bottleneck of trying to get people out of emergency departments where they are stuck with mental health crisis, often for days. We can invest in community inpatient, outpatient units so that those people have a place to go that is better than an emergency room and actually better than a locked inpatient psychiatric ward. There are several things we can do, and I will continue to also invest in mental health services directly in our schools for our young people.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Well, we welcomed Senator Mitchell, and now we're going to put her on the spot. So, Senator Mitchell, would you please give your thoughts on, let me read the question for you. Should the state invest in more mental health resources, facilities, or service? If so, what would you suggest?
If I may first say a quick hello, because I'm sorry I wasn't here for the beginning of this. This is also my National Guard weekend, and the only reason, so I'm working from home. I'm here on my lunch hour. The only reason I'm not in uniform is I'm working from home because we also I had a surgery from an old military uniform or military injury, so I'm in a cast right now. So my apologies for popping in on my lunch hour. Yes, mental health services. So I think it's a very significant problem, especially coming out of COVID. A lot of people are still trying to kind of reintegrate that socialization aspect, particularly for our children. I am also a foster parent, and I know that children in need have an additional need for some of those resources. My family uses some of those resources. So particular programs that can do that wraparound service are wonderful. Also, as a veteran, I'm vice chair on a state government and veterans committee. And so looking at PTSD and some of those specific populations, in addition to our general mental health, I think there's a lot of things that we need to better invest in.
Thank you, Senator Mitchell. And I would also like to say thank you for your service. It's our pleasure to have you here today, and we're thankful that you gave up your lunch hour for us. I'm going to move on to Representative Seeberger.
Thanks. In answering this question, I'm going to share how my day went yesterday. I have a son who has autism and some significant mental health needs. He woke up yesterday morning in crisis. And so instead of being able to head over to the Capitol to do my job as a newly elected senator, I spent 7 hours in the emergency room with him, trying to get him the help and support that he needed. We need a better system. My options were bring him into the ED or wait 2.5 weeks so he could see a psychiatrist. We need a better way. The emergency departments are filled. We walked past patients in the hallways. And as a paramedic, I know this. I see this every day. We bring folks in, we drop them off in the waiting room, and there they sit. Yes, we need to improve our system. And I will be the first person standing up and championing and screaming loudly that we need to do that.
Thank you so much for that story. It really kind of levels the whole thing, gives us a better perspective of your life and what is going on in mental health. I would like to turn it over to Betsy right now.
Thank you, Vivian. Thank you for everyone's input on these important questions and for your own personal journeys and sharing them. It makes things so much realer. Before we start this next round, I'm going to give Senator Mitchell an opportunity to answer the first question so we know, well, who is she anyway? So, Senator Mitchell, this is the question that we asked everyone at the beginning. What district do you represent and what is your committee assignment? What will be your top 3 priorities for this session and why? And what current legislation are you planning to support?
Well, again, thank you for allowing me to be here today. I represent District 47, which is all of Woodbury and South Maplewood. My committee assignments are all very near and dear to my heart. I have elections. I've been an election judge since 2018, often a head judge. I've helped with early voting, registration, all those things. So free and fair elections. I am on, I'm probably going to say them in the wrong order, but utilities, energy, environment, and climate. I'm a meteorologist, so I understand science, the atmosphere, and I've educated on climate before. So, you know, I think making sure we protect our natural resources in Minnesota, very important. I am also on, as I mentioned earlier, state, local government, and veterans. And I'm serving as the vice chair on that. So especially to really be able to spearhead some of those veterans issues, as well as make sure our state and local governments get some of the resources they need. And then I am also on human services, which comprises a number of topics, but it includes foster, adoption, addiction, and some of those different resources. As I said, I'm a foster parent. Both of my current full-time placements came out of homes with addiction. And I also do respite for an autistic boy, and I'm adopting one of my foster children. So all of those are important. Legislation, things like choice will be top of mind.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to go to the next 2 questions. They deal with our communities and natural resources. And we're going to start out with Representative Cha. Many are concerned about rising gun violence in our communities. What legislation, if any, would you support or propose to help reverse this trend?
Yes, you know, as a refugee going in, my communities, gun violence is real. I'm a gun violence survivor. I've been a victim. You know, many of my friends are no longer here because of gun violence. And so this is a very important topic to me, very close to my heart. I would support legislation such as, 48 hours reporting of a stolen or missing gun. That's something that Representative Her is pushing in the legislature, and I would support that. I think all Minnesotans deserves to be safe at school, at work, and in public spaces. And so I'll continue to support, common sense gun laws. And, ghost guns are on the rise. They're the ghost guns are one of the, highest concern right now in the gun safety realm. And we need to address that. Thank you.
Representative Hanson.
There's a few things, they're not new. If it's 21 to purchase alcohol or other things, I think it should be 21 years old to purchase a firearm. Red flag laws are important. I like that I'm seeing more and more efforts at getting gun locks out in the hunting community. I think that we can encourage that and also probably require that, that every time a gun is sold, there's a gun lock with it, and it's a responsibility for people to have that. So I think there's a lot that can be done, and I think we should do it. We've, again, been discussing this while the carnage has continued.
Thank you very much. Representative Hudella.
Well, we already have some of the toughest gun laws in the country. I think we need to do a much better job enforcing them. There's some things I do agree with Representative Cha, for example. Ghost guns are an issue, and I think folks even on my side of the aisle agree with that. But I think, again, it's a complex thing. I think mental health is playing a big part in it. I think we need to do a better job with not putting violent offenders and gun offenders back on the street as quick as we have. And I think part of that is through holding our judicial system and judges more accountable on some of these quick releases, and take a hard look at some of the organizations like the Minnesota Freedom Fund that play a part in putting some of these folks back on the street, sometimes as quick as 24 hours after committing an offense with a weapon. So to me, it's more of a people problem than a gun problem. And again, we have some of the toughest laws in the state already or in the nation on guns.
Thank you very much. Representative Hemmingsen-Jaeger.
My two kids are in kindergarten and third grade, and I think it was very early on in the school year they came home talking about how they had a lockdown drill, and that's made me feel very emotional because that's just something we should not have to be worried about. Our kids deserve to be safe. Our neighbors and our community deserve to feel safe in their community. If you need to take a test to drive a car, I don't think it's unreasonable to have a background study for when we're transferring firearms and purchasing them. There are also mechanisms for family members to alert either law enforcement or petition the court to help their neighbors. So I don't think it's unreasonable to have these types of red flag laws on the books either, that we can help protect our family and our neighbors from wanting to do harm to others. I think this is about keeping our community and our neighbors safe.
Thank you very much. Senator Klein.
So yesterday I had the opportunity to teach the government affairs class at Two Rivers High School for an hour with 30 juniors and seniors from high school. And I asked them what their top issues were. And this was one of them. And they were the level of dismay and surprise that we've allowed school shootings to become routine and predictable in this country over the last 20 years. These kids know that that doesn't happen in England. These kids know that doesn't happen in Germany or other civilized countries. The difference is not mental health. The difference is abundance of weapons. I've supported red flag laws in the past. I'm a firearm owner and a hunter. I've supported universal background checks. I know as a firearm owner that neither of those initiatives will infringe on my Second Amendment rights or my ability to go turkey hunting this spring. And in fact, the red flag laws may protect me if I'm ever in crisis or at a risk to my family or the community. So I'll continue to support those, and I think they're the right direction for our state.
Thank you very much. Senator Mitchell.
Yes, I went and talked to high schoolers the day after Uvalde. It was already scheduled, but that just happened to be the timing. And, everyone is, I believe we're still letting this go on to our children, especially. And I door knocked a lot, and both sides of the aisle, I heard, universal background checks, because it still allows you to have yours, but it makes it much harder for criminals and people that shouldn't have them to get those. Also, as others have mentioned, the red flag laws. I used to volunteer at a domestic violence shelter, and that would really help some of those people who are most at risk, quite frankly, to be murdered. Same thing, we've talked about mental health here, but let's say your child is having a mental health crisis. Red flag can help you temporarily remove something that could be the way they hurt themselves. So I think there's some really basic measures a lot of us agree on, and those should be first priority.
Thank you. Representative Senator Seeberger.
I think that we've reached a point here as a nation where all of us can agree that gun violence has gotten out of control. As a teacher, the first time I had to, when I was a student teacher, the first time I had to do a lockdown drill and active shooter training, it was sickening. It was terrible. As a paramedic, I've gone through a active shooter training on a couple of occasions. I'm going through it again in February, where we do simulate an active shooter situation in a school. And I can tell you, it gets pretty real at that point when you've got rounds going off inside a school, the smoke detectors going off, and I'm a paramedic going in and rescuing people, dragging them out in under simulated conditions. This kind of thing has to stop. I will never infringe on somebody's right to own a firearm, but we have to do something to stop these mass shootings.
Thank you very much. Representative Wiens.
Thank you. This was one of the top three things when I was door knocking is the perception of gun violence, the actual gun violence, and criminal activity. It's complicated and maybe it's complex. And I think this is one of those things where we need to work across the aisles to serve our communities. One of the things that's very disappointing to me is our criminal justice system that had in 2019 a departure rate of 46%. So you've got violent criminals that are not serving the time. We need to take those people off the street, take the guns away from them. So that's holding judges and prosecutors accountable. The other element to this is, I think, mental health, as Representative Hudella said. We need to be proactive on that, and we need to help kids. I mean, I can't believe the amount of juveniles that are not in school, that are out carjacking. We need to get these kids back to school and in a safe environment. I'll work with people of goodwill to get a handle on this, because this is like number one priority for many people in my community. Thank you.
Thank you. We are getting close to time, and so I want to give everyone an opportunity for a last statement. Unfortunately, we aren't able to get through all our questions, but we will move forward with our summary statements, and you'll have a minute each to do that. So could you include your perspective that you would like our audience to take away from our meeting today? You know, what is important as you're thinking about this legislative session and your role, and also our role as members? What do you want to hear from us? What is helpful that you can take away? And we're going to start with Representative Hanson.
Well, thank you. And again, thank you for this opportunity. You know, what I would say to the folks watching is give us a little bit of time and a little bit of grace. We're all settling into these new roles, and we have a lot of new members, and we're also back in person. So we've got a lot of folks we are shifting from Zoom into in-person meetings. And so we look forward to that. Come to the Capitol. The Capitol belongs to all of us. And so we want you to come to participate. We realize in-person may not be the best way sometimes, but email us, call us, stop us in the grocery store, come up to us. We work for you. And but also recognize it may take a little bit of time to get back to you. We're still getting our new staff. We're getting proficient in the electronic communications at the Capitol, but we are ready to work, and we are going to start voting this week. So contact us. We look forward to it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Representative Hudella.
Well, hopefully viewers can take note and joy in the fact that you heard a lot of us agreeing on things, right? You know, we're living in a time where I think a lot of public perception is, well, you're either DFL and your way over here, or you're Republican and your way over here. And I think it's important to remember that at the end of the day, we probably all want a lot of the same things, right? We want safe communities, we want great schools. We're going to differ and we're going to be spirited sometimes on how we get there. But if you paid attention to a lot of the responses, we agree on a lot of stuff. I'm really excited to work with Senator Seeberger to get PFAS under control in Hastings. We have a huge issue there. And you hear things like social security tax going away, and support for that on both sides of the aisle. So excited to just be in an environment again now that the elections are over, that we can all work together to get some good things done for the folks that live in our communities.
Thank you very much, Representative Hudella, and I second your comments about the importance of collaboration and coordination. That's really how we can get things done. Representative Hemmingsen-Jaeger.
And I just want to again express my thanks to everybody currently watching and everybody who will be watching the recording later. This is my first term in the legislature, so very excited and thank you again. And I will be doing my best to represent all 42,000 people of South Maplewood and Woodbury. There is a little bit of a learning curve, but I have been working with everybody to kind of make sure that I can climb that quickly. And I do want to kind of echo, you know, I could not have gotten here without people, without conversations. And I do want you to feel that even though I may not be on the streets knocking your door anymore, I really do want to be accessible. I want to meet you where you are. So whether it's phone or email or Zoom or in person, you know, however we need to meet. Again, I'm a scientist. I need my data to collect to make really good comprehensive conclusions. So just really appreciate it and looking forward to our great work ahead.
Thank you very much. Senator Klein.
Thank you, Betsy, and thank you to the League. Once again, this has never been a more important time in American history when democracy has been under threat, at least more than my 55 years on this planet. And the cure for that threat is institutions like the League and bringing people together from both parties, asking about issues, not about partisanship, and getting response. And that's how democracy works best. So thank you. Like Senator or Representative Hudella, I was impressed with the degree of bipartisan agreement on this forum. It was pleasing and inspiring. You know, Minnesotans have given us as Democrats a trifecta, but we understand that that's not a mandate for radical change. This is a purple state, and we are obligated to represent our Republican and our Democratic constituents. But you have heard that we have an opportunity to move things forward on things like tax relief for Minnesotans, climate change, public education, transportation, housing, and we've got some bipartisan agreement on that. And so I think Minnesotans should expect us to get some results on that.
That's awesome. Thank you so very much. Senator Mitchell.
Again, thank you. Sorry I didn't get to share the answers to all the questions, but I think like so many people here have said, I try to be very transparent and very accessible. So find me and I will get back to you if you need to know where I am. And I want to listen and learn. So for example, as I mentioned, I'm a foster parent, so I probably know more than the average person about special ed and disability and some of those things, but I'm already learning from my constituents through their stories and what the pay rates, for example, for some of the staff that help children are and things like that and things that we can fix. So I really want to hear those stories because I think a lot of us, hopefully most of us, got into this because we're passionate about our communities and about helping people. And we just want to get in there and do the work. And as a couple other people have said, you know, I'm one of the newcomers. So give me a little grace. We're all trying to figure out that balance of how to get everything done, but we will get it done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Seeberger.
I am so excited to be in this office and to be poised, ready to do all this work. I just want to express my gratitude for being able to have this incredible opportunity to do great things for the people of the state of Minnesota and my district. And thank you to the League for giving me the opportunity here on this Saturday morning to be able to talk to people and answer these questions. I am excited. I've got bills that have already been introduced. I am ready to get to work. And I think the people can really look forward to seeing some great movement and wonderful things happening in this session. And just to echo again, yes, I am one of the new people. My staff started on Tuesday. My email is very full. I will get to it, I promise. But I'm grateful to hear from my constituents and everybody else, and I promise to answer every email.
Thank you. Representative Wiens.
First off, thank you, League of Women Voters, and Vivian and Betsy, for putting this on. And the 10 questions were great questions that made me think and get out of my, I think, comfort zone. But that's what politics is about. And that's what Minnesota is about. I mean, we live in this frozen tundra at least a quarter of the year. And then we have this vibrant, bucolic beauty outside and natural resources. And I look forward to working not only with my House colleagues, but also in the other chamber where the real adults are, the well-dressed people. And but this is Minnesota, and Minnesota is about us getting things done, taking care of our people, and doing it in a way that leaves them with dignity, and as much as we can afford in this complex time. We're getting back together, rolling out of COVID still to some extent, and that challenge I think we can meet, and we can do it together because we're Minnesotans. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And last but not least, Representative Cha.
Well, thank you, the Leagues of Women Voter, once again for the forum, the opportunity to meet each and every one of you. You know, I want to leave with this perspective that the campaigning season is over. And those of us who are in the House, we are a united front. Despite that Ethan Cha is a DFL, most importantly, I am an American, and I am fighting for every American in my state, in my district. And across the aisle, we're going to work on these legislation. We're going to take care of the Minnesotans. We're going to ensure that there's transparency, and American lives are going to be improved while we're in office. And so I'm very excited for this 23 session with my colleagues, those across the aisle and those in the Senate. And, you know, although I may be new to legislation, I'm not new to caring for the people in my community and my fellow Americans. So thank you.
Thank you. This has been just wonderful. And I am just so proud to, first of all, have you all here today. Let me tell you, do you know what? This is the first time we've been able to gather all of our legislators together, and it is really remarkable. I also, maybe even for you all, it might be the first time you've seen every single person, because you know, you're running around, and this is the first week. So here's your team for Woodbury Cottage Grove area, which is just really awesome. Thank you again. I just want to mention a couple of things that are coming up on January 23rd. We have a members meeting to hear about our firearms study that we've updated, and going to be looking at some consensus voting to get to the convention. And then on the 30th, we'll have our program planning, where we really identify any other particular legislative topics that we would like brought to our own League of Women convention in June. We also have a book study going on. So there's a lot of stuff coming up. Again, we are thrilled that you took time to be here. We appreciate you. We appreciate all the work that you have undertaken, and for throwing your hat in the ring. If we didn't have people, qualified people like you, that were willing to step into the arena, we wouldn't be where we are as this great state of Minnesota. So thank you, thank you, thank you. You all have a wonderful rest of the weekend. Yay. Take care.